Hi, I'm Chris Walker, Head of Health and Safety at Napthans Health and Safety, and I'm really pleased that you've decided to take the time to listen to this month's QCS Health and Safety podcast. We've covered a vast array of workplace health and safety topics, hazards and issues throughout 2021, and now as we near the end of the year, there's one particular hazard that I wanted to cover with you. One significant risk that is often forgotten, and in fact, it's a significant risk that is so often forgotten, we almost left it out of the podcast schedule altogether. When you consider how many of us regularly encounter this risk, how many lives are affected year after year by failures to manage this risk properly, and the fact that in so many situations we wouldn't be able to run any aspect of our businesses without somebody taking this risk, it's a bit of a surprise it's not higher up on the radar. I do it at least twice a day for at least 2 hours. I really do a lot of it. Much like many others who do a lot of it, I think I'm really good at it. In fact, I'd consider myself considerably above average in this particular area of expertise. The trouble is, so does everybody else. Of course, we're talking about driving, and I'm really pleased, as I'm sure you will be too, that I'm joined by Neil Hughes Hutchings for this session, who will be sharing some of his wisdom and experience on all things driving for work and how to manage it safely.
Hello Chris, thank you for introducing me. Neil Hughes Hutchings here, Senior Health and Safety Consultant at Napthans. To start us off, I thought I would provide you with some road statistics from the Department of Transport for the year 2020. So an estimated 1,460 reported road deaths were recorded, with an estimated 23,529 people killed or seriously injured. These figures have decreased from 2019, but this is likely to be the effect the coronavirus pandemic and the reduction in road traffic during various lockdowns had on these figures. The overall trend between 2010 and 2019 has been broadly flat. With all the above in mind, Chris, why does this need to be on the radar of an owner or operator of an organisation within the care sector?
Thank you, Neil. Well, firstly, if you're an employer or business owner and you employ anyone to do anything for you, you've got duties under health and safety law to protect them and anybody else who might be harmed as a result of whatever it is that you do. We've discussed these duties during a number of this year's podcasts, so we won't be diving any deeper into the specifics of these duties right now. Look back through the archives for the risk assessment podcast if you would like some more info. But these duties apply to all aspects of work, all tasks carried out, and this includes driving for work. Road traffic legislation imposes specific requirements on employers in respect of vehicle use and maintenance. But employers also have that core responsibility under health and safety legislation to ensure, so far as reasonably practicable, the health and safety of their employees and others who may be affected by their work activities. This includes the activity of driving on public roads. As well as this, there's a seriously strong business case for managing work-related road safety. Of course, fewer road incidents mean less days lost to injury, fewer repairs to vehicles, fewer missed orders or inability to deliver services, and reduced running costs. Now, if your staff do drive for any part of their actual job, we're not talking about commuting to and from a fixed work location, but actual driving as a work task, such as driving between your work sites for work purposes, or from one resident's house to another in order to deliver your services, then driving is going to be probably the most dangerous thing your employees do on a day-to-day basis. You'll have stacks of policies, procedures, training, and you should also have risk assessments for a wide range of hazards associated with handling, moving people, infection control, premises maintenance, and all the other common care sector hazards. But none of these tasks or activities is statistically as likely to end up in an incident as driving. It's therefore vital that your organisation has assessed the risk of its driving activities and has assessed driving as a significant risk to the health and safety of its employees and puts into place effective controls to reduce the risk of incidents. When it comes to driving, we're talking about making sure that any drivers you instruct to carry out work for you are trained and competent to do so, that they're legally permitted to carry out the work driving activity, that the equipment and vehicles they're going to use are safe, and they know what to do in an emergency. Of course, if you provide the vehicle, it needs to be fit for purpose and adequately maintained. It's important to remember as well that there are some serious complications when it comes to driving for work as soon as we start to talk about the use of vehicles and our employees to move our service users around. It's important that the risks to service users in any such scenario, as well as the significantly increased driving risk to the employee, are considered carefully and that appropriate controls are in place. Carriage of passengers will need to be checked with insurers, and measures to prevent distraction of the driver or interference with the vehicle in any way must be considered in the risk assessment. When we combine this with all the other important arrangements deployed to manage lone worker risks and the potential for violence and aggression, driving tasks like these should be considered a considerable risk, and employees will need specific training on their safe execution. Now, I did mention earlier that if you provide the vehicle, you've got to make sure it's fit for purpose and well maintained. But Neil, can you clarify and explain for me how the employer's duties extend to those driving their own cars for work purposes?
Yes, Chris, that's a very good question. This is what we would call grey fleet vehicles. These are personal vehicles which are used for business purposes. We should be familiar now that an employer's responsibilities under the Health and Safety at Work, etc. Act 1974 are to take appropriate measures to ensure the health and safety of their employees and others who may be affected by their work activities. In relation to driving, you have a responsibility to take all reasonable steps to manage risks, and this would include risks associated with driving for work. These vehicles can pose problems to organisations, such as employees could be using their vehicle outside of their insurance requirements, and it can be difficult for an organisation to keep a record of their grey fleet vehicles to ensure they may meet legal road requirements. Checks that you should be doing include driver licence validity checks, the checking of insurance policies to ensure users have business cover on there, the checking of a valid MOT and road tax. In addition, you should be considering if the vehicle is suitable for work purposes. Factors such as the age of the vehicle, the condition of the vehicle, and any factory-fitted equipment such as ABS or air conditioning should be considered to see if they are suitable for the journey requirements you impose on your workers. Chris, it is clear from what I've just said that driver competence, vehicle condition and type are key in managing the risks posed by driving for work. What do you think, Chris, is the next step in managing these risks?
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, I think it's of most importance in all health and safety matters, and perhaps more so in driving than any other, to focus on controlling the controllables. Let's be honest, we can take appropriate measures to reduce the risk as far as we can, but we're still going to need to use the public roads, and they are full of uncontrollables, other people and other vehicles. It's clear that unless we eliminate all driving for work, which in so many cases is just not going to be possible, there's going to be some risk. But we really need to think about the following. Let's get some sound rules communicated to all staff on safe driving behaviours. We're not going to tolerate things like drink or drug driving. We expect the laws of the road to be followed, and we'll take a zero tolerance approach on any breaches. We'll make sure we implement safe rules around avoiding mobile phone use. Yes, I know it's illegal to use a handheld device, but facilitating compliance is part of safe driver management. How many companies have a do not use your mobile phone while driving policy, but continually call their employees when they know they're driving? It's important that we make sure that work is planned to avoid the need for rushing, shortcuts, speeding, and stressful driving scenarios. We need to plan realistic schedules, avoid the worst travel times where we can, and train our staff to recognise their own abilities, limitations, and situations in which they may not be fit to drive. We've got to be realistic about work schedules and driving distances. It's important not to push employees beyond their capabilities. It's important we don't risk excessive and dangerous fatigue. We really need to put in place an emergency plan for if it goes wrong. A minor accident or breakdown could have serious further consequences if employees don't know what to do in the immediate aftermath of any such incident. And we'll make sure that we're prepared for winter, equipping vehicles with the necessary stuff to keep us safe when it starts to freeze, and of course we'll keep our own premises ice and snow free with grit and snow clearance plans. So much of managing safer driving is about managing the planning and preparation side of our work activities and setting sound, safe working rules for our staff to follow. For experienced drivers, there's a perception that all of this is just common sense. But let's remember, a licence to drive just indicates that an individual employee had a good or lucky day at the test centre, not that they necessarily have the experience, skills and knowledge to be a safe, competent driver at work. We need to help them get there and keep performance and their safety under review. Neil, if you could just sum things up for me. I'm the incredibly busy operator of a busy service in the care sector. I have 1,000,001 priorities to balance. Give me 3 quick things I can do this afternoon to check I'm on track and, where possible, improve risk management in the area of driving.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, the first one is, have you identified the risk of driving in your organisation? If not, you should ensure you carry out a suitable and sufficient risk assessment and identify the control measures that you will put in place. My second one is, do you understand who is responsible for checks, servicing and testing of vehicles? You should ensure you have detailed written arrangements so employees are clear on their responsibilities in relation to driving and what they are responsible for in relation to vehicles used for business purposes. And my last one is, do your workers know what to do in a vehicle emergency? Once you have an emergency procedure in place, communicate this to all employees who drive for work. It will be prudent for drivers to keep a copy of the emergency procedure in their vehicle.
Thank you, Neil, and thank you all for joining us to listen to us talk about driving for work. We look forward to presenting further health and safety podcasts on a range of topics in the coming months.